Because it's mainly because of people's perception. Now it's funny because this is a core belief. I really don't care what people think of me, but when you have a business, you can't think that way if you want it to be successful. So, I still have those words. That is how I feel about how I just said is how I feel about it. But sometimes it just takes that one person to take what you said and just completely spin it, and now it's game over. And like sometimes I'm wondering, like, how did you take what I said here? How were you all the way over here? Like, how did you get here? How were you over there? I was here.
Welcome to Contentious Talks, a weekly podcast where we talk to influencers, politicians, celebrities, and everyday people to show that we all have unique opinions, and that's a great thing. I'm your host, Ryan Malinowski, and today we are talking with Chrys Johnson. How you doing today, Chrys?
What's going on, Ryan? How are you, man?
Doing well. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you into? What's your passion? That type of stuff.
All right, well, my name is Chrys Johnson. I am originally from New York City, Upper West Side, Manhattan. We moved here when I was 11 years old. And we went to Lingelstown Junior High School and then went to Central Dauphin High School in Central Pennsylvania here in Harrisburg. Eventually went to Harrisburg Area Community College for a degree in web design and development after a lot of soul searching. And by a lot, I just mean a few semesters. It wasn't really that much. And then got a associate's degree in web design development. Did nothing really with that. And only recently, I'd say within the last 4 to 5 years did I take an interest in personal training. So I got certified 4 years ago. I've been a personal trainer since 2016. I now run my own business as a personal trainer.
That's awesome, man. So you got a college degree and didn't use it.
Yep, like many Americans.
Talk to me about that a little bit. Why'd you initially go to college, and then why didn't you end up taking advantage of that education, I guess?
So I initially went to college mainly because, and I feel like this might be the story of so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Their parents told them to, and so part of why I agreed is because when I was younger, I was told, "Do you want to be, quote unquote, from my mom, pushing that mop as an adult, aka do you want to be a janitor?" This is not a knock to janitors, but that, I'm telling you, that terrified me. I didn't want to do that. So I was like, well, no, I want to make some money, not to say I want to be like a millionaire or anything, but I didn't want to be a janitor. I wanted to make money and live comfortably, in my adult years. So that's why, and that's why I went to college. That's why I dealt with it. And as for the degree, I started with art because I've been an artist, forever. Since I was 8 years old, I was always drawing. My art really got good when I was 21, when I was in college. And it also helped that I was taking art classes, but then I was like, I can't really apply this. I mean, you can, but for what I was starting to think as a young adult, I didn't want to do that. So I switched to graphic design. I hated it. So I went to my guidance counselor at a Harrisburg Area Community College, and I was like, is there anything else I can do? I want to make at least this as an adult. And I know it's going to take some time after I get the degree. And she was like, well, why don't you try web design development? There is a little bit of artistic flair you can throw in there. And so that's why I chose that. I ended up ultimately in that profession or major.
So did you search for a job in that profession afterwards at all?
I did to be honest, I did for a split second. Actually got a referral from one of Mom's, I don't know, it's been so long, co-workers or colleagues or whatever, and he wanted me to do a web page for him, but I had everything. I had all the tools from my computer ready to go, and I just choked. I just didn't. I felt not intimidated by it, but overwhelmed. And I felt bad. He gave me $100 to start it, and I never finished it, and I never gave his money back. So if you're out there listening, dude, I'm sorry.
Did you work for him? Like, did you actually start it?
I did start it, I just never finished it.
Ah, you did work for him, man. He paid you for that work you did.
That's it.
Right on. So what would you say to anybody who maybe is in college or thinking of going to college, or maybe they have a degree but they realize it's, kind of similar situation to you, not exactly your thing after investing that type of time into something?
I definitely say take the time to soul search. And when I say take the time, I don't mean a weekend. I mean take a few months to really find out, if it takes that long, find out what it is that you're passionate about, and what you can see yourself doing. What I was taught more recently was, and I know not everybody this applies to, but take a look at where you're at right now, where you're working. Take a look at the most senior employee that works in your company. Not what do they look like physically, like how do they behave? Do they look beaten, or do they look like they're, oh wow, this is a rewarding career? Chances are, if they don't look too enthused, that's you in 20 years. So just keep that in mind. I never forgot that. That also scared me almost as much as a janitor. And I was like, whoa, pump the brakes. Really think about what my next move is. And that's what I'd recommend. Just really take the time to find out what it is that you're passionate about. So that way work isn't really work. For those that are already in it, that have already gotten a degree, and you kind of realize too late, I'd say no, you're not too late. You realize now, even if you've put already a decade into it. One of the things I was taught was, remember Colonel Sanders, at 65 years old, that's when KFC blew up. So it's never too late for anything unless you think so in your mind. So it's never too late to just not pump the brakes, but just shift gears, if you will.
Cool. So you're the first half of your growing up years you spent in New York City, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you moved to Central Pennsylvania.
Then we moved to Central Pennsylvania.
That's a change, right?
That was quite a change. We moved here because we were going. Well, no. Yeah, I guess we were going through a divorce. So when they split, I came with Mom, and we were here in Harrisburg. We initially came out this way in particular because my aunt had left from New York and went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we were initially going to go to Lancaster in 2001, but we never did because we didn't like it. So we chose Harrisburg, which is about a 45-minute drive from Lancaster, so we could always visit our cousin, which we still do 20 years later to this day. So
cool. What was that like for you as an 11-year-old kid moving from a big city to, generally speaking, probably one of the smaller cities in the country?
Right. So it was definitely a culture shock. I was definitely used to being around primarily African American. So now coming out here, the situation was pretty much reversed, which was fine. It was just different. So just like with anyone, you adapt to your environment, and it took a while, but eventually, we got, I don't know really how to explain it properly, but we acclimated. So
What was the biggest thing, or the toughest thing, I guess, for you as an 11-year-old to get used to in your new ecosystem?
I guess that I had to make friends all over again because, at that age, there are so many things that are still developing. Your circle, your sphere of influence, who you are as a person is still very, moldable. I don't know how else to explain it. So it was pretty different to just drop my group of friends, essentially relocate and build from the bottom up. Now I'm a kid in not a completely rural area, but it was rural compared to being in New York, and we made it work. And actually, my first friend that I met him at the bus stop outside of our apartment, and we are still friends to this day. That was 2001, so we have a friendship of almost 20 years. I met another friend that he introduced me to about 6 months later, and we're all still friends. It's like 20 years now. It's crazy. They got kids and families in the game, and sometimes I look at them, it's like it's still that 11 and 14-year-old I met back then.
That's awesome. So you said it was 2001 you moved here?
Correct.
In the summer?
So that was in the winter. So technically it was December 2000.
Okay.
And so it was pretty much 2001.
So you moved out of New York City, left a bunch of family behind right before 9/11 pretty much.
Yeah, so 9/11, we were only here for 8-9 months. And of course, 9/11 impacted so many families. It impacted the entire country, of course. But our whole family's from New York, so we're like, is everyone okay? Are they alive? So of course, we're all freaked out, cousins, aunts, uncles, we're on the phone I remember looking at that image. I was in 7th grade in the classroom. I was like, why are they showing us this movie? That is not a movie. Wow. And it just took so much to process that. It was very scary, and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, luckily, at least for my family, everything turned out all right. One of my aunts was actually pretty close to the attack, but not within direct, she wasn't directly impacted. But she could see, from where she was, there was just a puff of smoke is what she described to us.
That must have been a unique, obviously you said it impacted so many people, but it must have been an even more unique impact being home for you and watching it on, from afar.
Yeah, it was different. Back then, before the divorce, my stepdad used to drive the MTA buses in New York, and oftentimes I'd ride with him in the front seat. I actually thought it was fun to ride with him. It sucked getting up at 5 in the morning. I don't think it matters what age you are, it still sucks. But opinion. But from where we were coming from, we would often go through the WTC train station, World Trade Center train station. And I remember one time we came out, the station's obviously underground, the subway, so we come up, and I just remember as a kid just looking at wow, this building's really freaking big. That is the first and last time I ever saw that building, was that time. And the next time it's just ground zero. So.
Gotcha. Cool. So what are you most passionate about now? Now that you're an adult, you're doing your own thing. What's your focus in life?
So right now, coming from that background, let's just say this. If anyone's ever heard of this phrase, I really take it to heart. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. So back when we used to live in New York, we didn't really have any examples of success too much. Like I mean, they were there, but they weren't. And what I mean by that, like my biological father got a master's degree as an architect. My cousin is the one that came down to Lancaster that we eventually followed in 2001. And she's an executive with the Comcast company. So those were really examples of, I guess, financial success. But the overwhelming sphere of influence was poverty. And when you're in it, you don't really know. It's just normal, just like if somebody was born to rich parents, it's just normal. That's just what it is. And then it's like, as you grow up, it's like, oh wow, it's not everybody has what I have, or if that makes sense. So coming out here, 20 years later, my thing is just to not be successful to the point where it's like, I'm rolling in millions upon millions of dollars. But just like with fitness, I used to be really thin. So I don't want to say I've made it because I still feel like I have a lot of work to do. But I guess fear is maybe the right word. I don't want to go back to what I was. So that's what keeps me motivated in the gym. And same with building my business, with my personal training business, and even delving into new business ventures. I'm really into online ventures right now, as far as e-commerce and the like. I'm interested in that right now as a second option in the very, very near future. But I say that because those things motivate me, because I don't want to go back to what it used to be.
Cool. So how'd you get into personal training and fitness? What's that journey look like, or what did that journey look like for you?
That was a pretty interesting one. So I was working at Planet Fitness. Well, let me rewind. 10-second rewind. My first job was at Giant. I worked there for 4 years. I hated it. Giant is a supermarket chain in Central PA. I hated it. I don't even hate people. I just hated that job. I do not hate people whatsoever. I love people. So when I switched to Planet Fitness, I was working the front desk there. I loved that job. Now, they paid pennies, don't get me wrong, but I loved it. I loved clocking in and being around that environment of people that wanted to do better, or at least were giving it an honest effort. Some don't, of course, but giving it an honest effort overall majority of the time. And so I had been there for a little bit. At that time, when I started with Planet Fitness, I was only working out for 2 years. And so through the course of getting that job, I met the owner, the manager, and that's how it was pretty easy to get into that job, because he knew me from coming in so consistently at that time. So I came in, and after a couple years, the results really started to show. And I remember this one kid came up to me, and when he came up, he was like, there was a trainer on staff. I wasn't the trainer. Yeah, I was just a front desk guy, one of the purple shirt people. So he comes up to me and he's like, hey, I didn't feel comfortable asking him because he doesn't look the part, but I wanted to ask you. I'm actually going away to college, and I want to get into Division III football. I'm looking for some leg exercises. Can you help me? I feel really comfortable talking to you. I was like, yeah, sure. So one of the things about when I worked at Planet Fitness, I was always like writing stuff. Like I wasn't supposed to be. I was supposed to be paying attention at the desk, but I always had like these little pieces of paper, and I would always be like writing programs out. Always writing, just mock ones, random. No, this makes sense. No, that doesn't make sense. This makes sense. Sets, reps, tempo, rest times, all that stuff. I would just be doing it behind the desk. Nobody really knew. I just kept it to myself. So of course, boom, it was like that. I was like, go ahead and do your workout. I'll have it when you're done. He comes up, I give it to him. He's like, thanks. I don't see him for like 7-8 months. He shows up, he walks in the door. I don't even know who he is. It's been so long. He's like, hey, I know you don't remember me, But that program you gave me, it worked. I got in. I was like, oh, shit. So, and that feeling, it was that feeling where I was like, yo, I like this. I was probably like 22, 23. And I'm like, I want to learn more about this. I'm definitely interested because I like that feeling. And even now, when I help somebody get to their goal, or we hit a major milestone after a couple months of training, that same feeling from that kid, I still feel it. So and it's not going away.
It's awesome. So you found a thing that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What after you realized that's that you loved that, you enjoyed it, and it's something you wanted to do, what was the process like to get credibility, and what do you have to go through to become a personal trainer?
Well, let's start with that first, and then we can talk about credibility. So there's plenty of Bitstagrammers, if you will, who are not certified, but they look great, and they come up with cookie cutter programs for you to follow that people are and still do pay for, but they don't really know how to teach. So they just come up with like a cookie cutter program that they try and stuff a whole bunch of people into just for monetary purposes. And personally, I don't think that's right. But they can get away with it because they look the part for the credibility. What you need to do is, if you really want to make it a career and not just like a quick buck and getting over people like that, which again is totally wrong. So you want to get certified. If you don't get certified, you want to have a college degree in exercise science or sports medicine. Sometimes they're interchangeable. I went and got a certification. So I went to Philly. When I was working for Planet Fitness, there was a personal trainer there, and funny story, I got a job as the trainer at a Planet Fitness in Harrisburg around like 2015, 2016. I was not certified, but I was studying for it. And so the trainer that I met told me of a better place to get it and to get it faster. So I at least have a certification I could go back to when I was studying for, which took longer to get. So I'd have more. So I went ahead and got that one. I went out to Philly, studied, aced the test, easily got it. It was, don't get me wrong, it was tons of questions. It was over 100 questions, but I got it. And that's when it started. It really, at that time, I didn't really promote myself because I was just working for Planet Fitness, which was enough. And looking back, that was the wrong mindset. But I started to get people to ask me, hey, would you do stuff on the side? And it started with something really light, like maybe once every couple weeks. And it was just super, super sporadic, scattered. But they were asking me. I wasn't hunting for clients whatsoever, and that's how it started, really. And so, but in order to really be credible as a trainer, you need to get certified, or you need the proper bachelor's or master's degree for it.
So, is there one certification, or are there multiple certifications you can do, or is it vary based on state?
I don't think it varies based on state. Your successful varies based on state, for sure. I'm sorry, what was your original question?
Just if, you get a certification, mm-hmm. Now you're a certified trainer. Mm-hmm. Are there levels of that? Or is it just, a once and done type of thing? It's something you study for? It's
something you study for, and then you get continuing education credits. So in order for my certification to be valid, I have to take 8 continuing education credits within 2 years, or it'll go null and void, and I have to take the test all over again. I mean, as far as you can always learn something new. The certifications often get split up into groups. Like you have a certification in training, but then there might be an option for like aquatics or something, or there might be something for off the top of my head, like cycling or something. Like when I was looking for the certifications, I saw it. I just was like, okay. Like I didn't really pay attention, so that's why my answer is like that, because I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Sure,
I'm just gonna focus on what
focus on.
Correct.
Right. Gotcha. So you're a personal trainer now, right?
Yeah.
Well, whoop-de-doo, right? How do you go from that to making money?
Well, it was definitely whoop-de-doo at the beginning, because I still wasn't making much money when I first started. So how do you become successful? Well, there's really three things, and when I interviewed my first trainer, that was the first thing I asked him. What do you think are the three most important traits that you need to be successful? And some might say that one's higher than the other, but I don't know. I think they're interchangeable to an extent. People skills. So you definitely, personal training is a business of people. So chances are, if you don't like people, you're not going to be too successful with them, because you'll have a high turnover rate, because people won't really want to train with you long term. They also won't refer a lot of people to you. You need to know your stuff, so that when people ask you, and they will ask, you don't want to get caught with your pants down. So that's another reason why these Bitstagrammers, they hide behind that. They ignore the questions that they get when you DM them, because they don't know. They just lift, bro. You know what I mean? Even the females, they just lift, bro. And when it comes to actually sitting down and helping somebody solve a problem, they don't know how to answer it. And the last thing that, personally, I think you need to be successful is you need to look the part. And I have mentioned this to quite a few clients over the years, and every single one of them said, if you don't look the part, I'm not giving you my money. So I mean, part of the whole sales process is you have what I want in some way, shape, or form. So if I'm going to give you my hard-earned money that I just busted my behind for this week, you need to embody what you preach. So if you're certified, but you don't embody what you preach, and you just try to compensate with an overload of knowledge, that's only going to get you so far. And that person will never be as successful as the one that has the knowledge, the people skills, and looks the part.
What's your thoughts on everything going on in the world at the moment? Big question. Everything going on in the world at the moment.
Yeah, there's so many avenues to go down right now. I'm just going to start with this one. I just feel so conflicted with BLM right now, because when it first started with George Floyd, it's not like I never saw that stuff before, and it's not like I was ignorant to the things going on in the world. Of course, there's situations like that happen every day. But when I saw that one, I don't know what it was about that one, but my blood boiled. That doesn't really happen, but it was, I don't know. And not to say that he was a saint, considering some of the things that George did, but at that point, none of that mattered. He was still a human being, and that, I don't know, I'm just so neutral to things, but I couldn't even remain that way. I mean, it was just a human instinct, and I don't know. So initially, I was all about it. Now, I wasn't on Facebook like BLM. I didn't do the black screen thingy. I didn't talk about it too much because as a business owner, I really believe that you should, to the best of your ability, remain as neutral as possible. But I know that's not always possible. it got to the point where people would ask, what do you think? Not really, whose side are you on? They would ask, because they would assume what side I was on, based off my skin color. So, they would just ask what I thought about it, and I would just respond, it's awful what happened to him. Now, when people then went into a lot of the things that George Floyd did himself, I would just be like, well, you're right. The crimes that he did were wrong. But we're not talking about that. The focal point of what we're talking about is what was on the video only. So I like to stay on point whenever I'm discussing a hot topic like that. I like to stay on point. I don't like to go into what ifs. I always stay on the reason that the conversation came up in the first place, which was that video and only that video, not anyone's past in that video. But back to the movement and what's going on today. So ultimately, it just started getting out of hand to a point where, like, for example, there was somebody on my Facebook, and I'm just like, how did you get to this point? Her post was "Let it burn it all down," and I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Like, that's not the answer. I understand, dude. I'm pissed too, but like, that's not the answer to that. It's not destruction. The peaceful protests, I'm all about it. I personally did not participate, mainly because of COVID, for one. But also just because I've never really been in something like that. So I just was like, I'll just watch the live streams. But then right around that time is when they started to turn into those riots, and at that point I'm just like, dude, I can't even. And then there were people in the BLM movement that were about the riots. And so now you always have to think about, especially as a business owner, you have to think about everything. So if I were to really blast that and be like, I'm all about this, some people would see it as, yes, you're about BLM and I'm all about it. It makes sense. Justice for George. Other people would see it as, oh man, you're just out here starting riots, and I didn't do anything, so that's why I chose to remain neutral. So it's really sad, the state of affairs, because it's just devolved into the whole the defund police thing, and it's just, I don't know. I've turned off the news for a while now, to be honest. And I was taught, focus on the things you have control over. So that's what I've chosen to do.
So what's the, for you, what's the difference, like what's the delineation between, a man was killed by police officers, protests happen, riots happen, and now everyone's calling for defunding the police. What's the delineation there between that and, the two things you had said earlier? The protests, peaceful protests, that's cool and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Why do you draw the line there, I guess, is the question.
Because it's mainly because of people's perception. Now, it's funny because this is a core belief. I really don't care what people think of me. But when you have a business, you can't think that way if you want it to be successful. So, I still have those words. That is how I feel about how I just said is how I feel about it. But sometimes it just takes that one person to take what you said and just completely spin it, and now it's game over. And like, sometimes I'm wondering, like, how did you take what I said here? How were you all the way over here? Like, how did you get here? How were you over there? I was here, but so I really don't know where I guess it's just when people started seeing it as in a different way other than justice for George is when I just was like, nah, I can't get down with that anymore. So I just decided to remain neutral about it. that makes sense.
So apart from the business side of things, and obviously, protecting your brand and whatnot,
Sure.
If that weren't in the picture, do you still feel you draw the line that justice for a person's death and peaceful protesting versus rioting, defunding things, that type of thing?
So yes, I still would, because even though the business and my reputation, so to speak, wouldn't really be as important, I guess, because most of the people that were talking crap, they don't have anything to lose, but I still wouldn't have, because I don't like to be involved in debates and stuff like that. I have better things to do with my time than to go back and forth with somebody that I probably only met once. So I'm just, hey man, that's great. Like, that's great. That's pretty much. So I still would have just cut it.
Do you have something to say? Then consider being on the show. Go to contentioustalks.com/guest and apply today. That's contentioustalks.com/guest to apply. Now back to the show. Well, thanks for sharing all that with us, Chrys. Really appreciate your perspective and being willing to share your opinion on things and your story. What we're going to roll into next is everybody's favorite segment of the podcast. It's called the Tough 12. Okay, it's 12 questions, 3 different categories, 4 questions each category. Okay, the categories are politics, philosophy, personal, and religion.
I'm up for the Tough 12.
Cool. So the first category is politics, Chrys.
Okay.
The first question in the politics category is, what is a fair society?
I believe a fair society would be a society where everyone has the opportunity to really, I guess think for themselves. I guess because I really appreciate a lot of the fundamentals of what America stands on as far as free speech and a lot of freedoms that sometimes we take for granted and other countries just don't have, and it's just like, wow, how do you not have that? But it's just what our country's founded on. A capitalistic society where essentially you have the opportunity, if you're born, like the way I always viewed capitalism, even when I was learning about it in social studies, when we didn't have any money, is essentially we're given a chance. I look at it as like this, as a chance to learn, to grow, to acquire specific information that can ultimately generate income and help create quite a successful life. Here's the best way to put it, as successful a life as you would like to make it. So I would say that's a fair society where you have the option to be great even if you don't come from anything, if that makes sense. I feel like there might be little pockets that I'm missing in this very general question right now. I would say what's not fair is when people take advantage of handouts. And I'm actually going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that on purpose.
Bonus question here. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, 1 being absolutely the opposite of perfect, how would you rate America's society in terms of its fairness?
I say a 7.
A 7? Right on. Cool. Doing all right, America. Not perfect, but doing okay, according to Chrys. What would you say then the number one issue facing our society is?
Man, laziness. Laziness. And here's the reason why I say that. Oh my goodness. Okay. Listen, cousin, I love you, cuz. I love you, cuz. I love
you. He's calling people out on the podcast.
You are the perfect example. I love you, bud. I love you, man. I think you're really funny. Okay. So I have two family members. My cousin I spoke about earlier in Lancaster, that we followed. And my other cousin, who stayed in New York. Now, this is the perfect example of victim and victor mentality. Now, what ended up happening is, even though they came from the same circumstances, one became very successful and one has struggled their entire life. Do I want to say all of that is laziness? No. But to take the victim card, which I think a lot of people do, it kind of flows into. You notice I'm fidgeting a little bit,
because he just called your cousin.
Because I just called them out, but I'm actually calling out a lot of people because I feel like it's so easy to fall into that because they came from the same situation, but one chose victory and one chose mediocrity. You chose that. We're always in control of our decisions. We're never like, especially in America where we have the option to do that stuff. So there's so many examples. That's one of my favorite personal ones, to see family members essentially come out the hood, in quotes, and they made it. They made it. And it's always a reminder that I just don't think that laziness is like, it's good for society, like, in general. Now, of course, we all have those moments. I do, like, we're all human for one. So let me bring it back. We all have those moments, like, where it's like right now it's overcast as we're driving. Picture this: it's 6:45 in the morning. The sun just came out. It's August. It's 6:45 and it's overcast. Do you want to get out of bed? I don't. I mean, that pillow feels amazing. Like, we all have those days, you know what I mean? And it's okay to feel that, but to live a life of that, though, like, one of the things that I often hear is a very misquoted quote from the Bible. Money is the root of all evil, and that's incorrect. It's actually the love of money is the root of all evil. And I bring it to money to say simply this: we're all put on this planet, in my opinion, to help people. How are you going to help somebody if you don't have any money? How are you going to do that? You can't help anybody. I just hired somebody last week. He's the first person I've hired in my business. I just gave somebody a job. I just created a job. I just helped somebody out. But that wouldn't have happened if I didn't take a chance on myself. If I didn't give myself a shot. If I decided to just stay at Giant making like $8.15 an hour. It's just like, oh, this is the best it's gonna be. Eventually I'll be the front end checkout coach, and I'll be the manager. And this is not a slam to them, but it's like we were put on this planet for more than that, And I feel like lately I've been telling people there's seasons to life. There's seasons, and bringing it back, because I didn't get I went on a tangent for a reason. If everyone's lazy, nothing gets done and everything falls apart. If you want to talk about the number one issue facing society, if we all were lazy, that's probably one of the worst case scenarios, which would lead to so many negative ripple effects. But I guess that's my long-winded answer to that.
Right on. Laziness. I like it. Next question. Do politics matter and why?
Do politics matter in general? You're asking?
Sure.
Good question. And you know what? I feel like I'm probably the worst person to ask because I don't really follow politics. I never really have. So I feel that if I gave an answer, it would probably just, if I were an outside viewer that did know more, I'd be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? So I really don't have an answer to that.
Fair enough. Next one then. What role should government play?
I feel like it's the same as the previous question, but I will try. What role should government play? I think the government should play a role where, remember I was talking about laziness in the question before last. I think government should play a role to help the people who need the help, not are just riding it out. However, I also think that it should support society with, programs designed to help people not only just like, of course, it's like some people get through, like bad times get thrust upon them. Okay, that's part of life. It's not going to be a cakewalk all the time, but it's also not going to be rainstorms all the time either. Life is all about give and take and just weathering the storm. Is not all gloom and it's not all rainbows either. So I think that personally, and again, somebody might be like, what the heck is this kid talking about? I think that it should help people get on their feet that are trying to get on their feet. And for people that are trying to make moves, help them to make moves with programs, which I'm gonna say I pretty much do. But I feel like I'm totally unqualified to answer this properly. But like I said, I'm trying. And help people who are trying to make moves, because the more small businesses, the more jobs are created. The more money flows to the economy, and blah blah blah, and it's just better off for the economy.
Next is philosophy. What is truth?
Truth. The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. That pretty much sums it up for real. But truth is, if we're talking from a philosophical sense, hearing what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. I believe that kind of flows a little bit back into the first category, which is politics and being politically correct. To a certain extent, of course. But I think sometimes we all need to hear the truth. I can say that more often than not, whenever I hear the truth, I get pissed off. But it goes away, and it's more often than not something I needed to hear, and something we all need to hear, or we don't want to hear it, but we know that's what we need to do. But I think that's probably the best way to answer what is truth, period. So I guess that's my answer.
Good deal. Next question here. What do you believe about people's ability to change?
Oh, I love this one. Okay. I have seen time and time again people overcome scenarios where I'm just like how in the world? It almost seemed like every possible thing was stacked against you, and you still overcame it. I'm a big motivational speaker enthusiast. I've promoted many a motivational speaker. Eric Thomas is one of my favorite ones, and he essentially went from being homeless and eating out of trash cans to being the number one motivational speaker in the world. I started following him in 2012 when I really got put onto self-development and just bettering your life. And it was just that catapult of, well, if I can do it, if they can do it, I can do it. And it seems so corny. It seems so corny at first, like, well, of course, if they can do it. But how many people actually really follow through and believe those principles? Because if they did, we'd be seeing, the whole country would be turned upside down in a good way. So that just shows you that a lot of people don't believe they can change. I would like to I can't really use myself as an example because I was always taught as a kid that you can always make it happen. But it was at first it's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure every parent tells their child, you'll grow up to be the greatest you could be or whatever. As I grew older, I realized, no, that isn't the case. That is very much not the case. It also depends on how you're taught that, because those types of things are what's taught to people. Because if you're taught that it's just, hey, this is just the way it is, well, then what incentive is there to change? So for example, when I was I guess it's the only personal example I can use, is when I used to be skinny up until 19 years old. I tried multiple times to, like I said earlier, to lift to no avail. I tried for 6 weeks. Now with my knowledge now, I didn't try long enough and hard enough. That's what it was. Also, I had no idea how to work out at all. I just did push-ups and sit-ups. But my point being, I tried 3 times, and on the fourth time, all I asked myself was this simple question: what will happen if I don't quit this time? That's it. I wasn't like, I want to be swole, I want to be jacked. It was just, what'll happen? It was curiosity that drove me. And I feel like I don't really run into scenarios like that with people too often. But as far as like relating that to the ability of people to change, you have to believe that. And not a lot of people believe, because we're essentially, again, this is just my opinion, we're essentially conditioned to just be average, I guess. I guess that's that's the best way I could put it. Unfortunately, we're just conditioned to be average. So it really takes, maybe not so much a forward thinker, but sometimes a forward thinker. Remember what I said before, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. That definitely affects your ability to change, because if you're around people that have changed or have made like amazing strides in your life, chances are, if those 5 people have, chances are you're the 6th. So it's about who you surround yourself with. But dude, I absolutely believe people have the ability to change. They just want to. It's not so simple to say, well, you just need to want to change. Well, that doesn't help anything. You have to show people that they have the ability to change. I would say that's probably the best way to answer that.
Awesome. Next question. How do you explain consciousness?
I guess what you experience in your waking hours.
Okay.
As reality. I guess that's my best answer to that.
Right on. We'll just move on.
Okay.
Last question here in philosophy. What exactly makes you you?
I won in the sperm race, so. What makes me me? I'd say, there's so many factors in that. Of course, if you want to talk about technical, parents, obviously, that you have no control over. But if you want to talk about all the ideals and personality and everything, what makes me me is just all the stuff that I've gone through throughout my life. I'd say there were tough moments. I'd say there were cakewalk moments. There were challenging moments, defining moments, without a doubt. There were moments where I would learn from other people's mistakes, which I was taught as that is the true meaning of wisdom, learning from other people's mistakes so that you don't do it and you have an easier life. All those experiences end up into the culmination of, I guess, who's in front of the camera today. I guess that's the answer to that.
Perfect. That's philosophy. Last category here, personal and religion. What do you believe about God?
I love this one. I love this one because, one, nobody really asked me. Two, what I'm about to say, I totally believe. And three goes back to what I said earlier, where I really don't care what people think about me. So, I'm a simple guy. Someone might say that a Big Bang Theory, a massive explosion just created all this stuff today, this road that we're driving on, and this traffic light that we're about to pass, and all these signs and all these buildings and trees, and sorry, I'm gonna have to call bullshit. That just doesn't make any sense. How, of course, we evolved as a species, but an explosion ultimately culminating into all of this just makes no sense to me. And so when I was learning about God as a child, it's funny because someone listening to this might be like, well, you sound pretty damn logical. So how do you throw logic into this? Because that is not logical. But I guess it just depends on how you see it. Again, I'm not here to transform anyone's thoughts. Hey, man, if you're an atheist, hey, go do your thing, dude. And if you believe, go do your thing, dude. I'm neutral AF. All right. But to me, it just makes sense that there was a higher power in all this. So as far as what do I believe? I totally believe the whole thing. Do I follow everything? No, I'm not even going to sit here and lie to everybody and be like, oh, I follow the Bible to every... No, I don't. And most people that are into Christianity, if they say they follow it, they're probably lying too. So I just prefer to be honest with people. Yes, I do believe. I try to follow to the best of my ability, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to everyone and say that I'm some saint. All right. Yeah, I do. To be honest, that's actually the main reason, because I think that the Big Bang Theory is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I'm like, because of that, this has to make sense. Now, of course, there's other religions and all that, and it comes back to, remember that other question about what makes you you? You know, under different circumstances, I probably wouldn't have said what I just said. You know, if my parents were different, I might be an atheist. You know, but this is just how the dice were rolled. So, you know, I believe. So that, I guess that's where that ended up. So that's my answer.
Cool. What do you think happens after death?
So after death, again, this is just my opinion. So after death, you're getting judged for all your stuff, and if you get a passing grade, you go up, and if you get a failing grade, you go down. So that's really it. I mean, again, like, it kind of goes back to the first. Am I a saint? No. You know, am I going to be judged for some dumb stuff I did? Of course, you know, but I think we've all done dumb stuff. But, you know, if you believe in a Christian faith, we're all sinners. Now, like, repeating the same mistake, now that's just silly, and I personally believe that's on you. But to learn from your mistakes and become a better person and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I'm wholeheartedly a believer in that, to the utmost. So as far as what happens after death, I believe that you're judged, and if you get an A, you go up, and if you get an F, you go down. That's pretty much it. So
good deal. Next one here. What gives life its meaning?
I think what gives life its meaning is what you do for other people. Quick side note, I used to be really freaking selfish. As a child and even into my early 20s, it was all about me, and what I could get out of people, what I could get from people, which is, again, why I say, hey, listen, we all sin, you know? So I was selfish. You know, there were times where I took advantage of people. And to be honest, whenever I think about it, it makes me sick. And I'm glad that, going back to one of the other questions, what do you believe about people's ability to change? I'm so glad that, we change. And I think it's really all about giving. I remember, so I believe that most kids are like this to a certain extent, like, I can't wait to see what I'm getting for Christmas this year. I mean, we want toys. We want that as kids. That's pretty much all that matters, until bills start to show up. But yeah, we want that. But then there's a shift where it's just like, it's kind of like what I mentioned earlier when I have a client and I got them results, and that feeling, like that warm feeling I get when I was like, yo, I just helped somebody, and I feel so good about that. I just gave somebody something, and they really valued it. They really appreciated it. Even now, like I have a sister. She's 9 years old, and every Christmas, like when I give her something, like when I see her face, like you can see like her eyes, like kind of like light up, like you see like the reflection that how when you see somebody's eyes and they just like they get really excited. Like I really like that, and I'm not sure at what age that transition occurred, but I'd say that the true meaning of life is to enrich other people's lives in some way, shape, or form.
Well, this is it, Chris. Last question in the Tough 12. You made it. Well, if you answer this question, you made it. What is love?
Love is I feel like it's more than just a feeling. I feel like it's more of a state where, and it's not like something so corny where it's like, I value and I treasure this person so much that I would die for them. It's more than that. It's really just like, it's a state beyond I would do any and everything for this person. Love, at least towards other people, it's almost like that person is an extension of you. Is how I would explain that. I mean, if we're talking about just like you're dating, well then, I think that's pretty, I think that's pretty obvious, but, if we're talking about, since it's such a broad, like, question, I'm trying to really go beyond and give, like, the best answer I can. I guess that's what I have, like, what is love? My answer would be, like, it's just a state of being where it's just like, essentially that person that you're directing your love towards too, it's almost an extension of yourself. Where of course you would do anything for that person. You take a bullet for that person, you would do any and everything to see that person do well, succeed, feel good, smile, laugh, everything. Now when it comes to things like, I love to lift, I think that's different. That's why I answered the way I did. If it was just what is love in relationships, I would have answered entirely different. I wouldn't even have stuttered. It would have just, but yeah, when it comes to things, and I guess it's a little different, but I guess that's my answer. It's a state.
Awesome. That's it, Chrys. That's a tough 12. That's the podcast. Thanks for being on. How can people find out more about you?
So you can go on Instagram and go at No Limit Chrys. Chrys is spelled Chrys, so No Limit Chrys. And you can also go on Facebook and look for No Limit Fitness, or just search my name, Chrys Johnson, Chrys. If you look, it'll be the background photo with the Dragon Ball Z character. That'll be me. So that's how you can find me.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Next week on Contentious Talks.
Where I lived, there was an overlook called Washington's Outlook or something like that. I forget it. Washington Rock. It was a rock way up on a mountain that apparently George Washington himself stood to watch for British troops coming through the valley where we lived. And so we went up there, and from that point you could see the skyline of New York really well. And so we went up there and we saw the smoke coming up from the island, and it was thick and it was heavy. It was like a big fire was just, and obviously it wasn't fire, but it was really interesting to be able to see that as a kid and kind of confirm, wow, that really happened. It's not just on TV.
Yeah.
I had a discussion with an uncle of mine who is a leftist, and I asked him, when does life begin? And he said, well, after birth. And I said, but in the womb, the child is alive. As soon as conception even, they start seeing reactions of life, and the woman's body forms a womb for life. And so life begins way back there. But he disagreed with me. Went in and out of homelessness during that time. Early on, after I failed out of Messiah College, I was homeless, and I was homeless for like maybe almost a year, I think. And then I finally got some buddies together and we got an apartment in Mechanicsburg.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Contentious Talks. Did you like this episode? If so, consider sharing this podcast with your friends and family. To get notified about new episodes, please be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to connect more, like Contentious Talks on Facebook. To support Contentious Talks and for more content, consider joining the Contentious Collective for as little as $1 a month. To do so, visit contentioustalks.com today. Contentious Talks is produced, hosted, filmed, and edited by Ryan Malinowski. Contentious Talks, copyright 2021, all rights reserved.